In this video, I'm going to be installing an Athena Get ECU with injector relocation to the reed valve on my KTM 2021 300 TPI. I'd like to start by saying a huge thank you to Mike at Takamoto for supplying this kit for test and review purposes. Takamoto is based in Las Vegas, California, and is focused on supplying performance parts and accessories for KTM off-road motorcycles. I'll put a link to their web shop in the description of the video. Here you can see the components included in the Get race kit. So obviously the main one is the ECU, which has been pre-flashed with two maps for my 2021 300 TPI. Takamoto's map partner is Harris Performance Race Development, a renowned tuning house in the US, who developed the maps specifically for the customer's bike with the details provided by Takamoto. So the two maps are controlled with the map switch shown here. So right now it's in map 1, which is full power race map. And then map 2 is for low traction conditions. So Get have a traction control system which doesn't use a wheel sensor but monitors the RPM of the engine, and based on that allows you to set 10 different traction controls. So this control here goes from 1 up to 10, and you can set the level of tractions control. So level 1 is the lowest and level 10 is the highest. So that's only enabled on map 2. And then on the left is the Wi-Fi module. This allows you to control your maps from your smartphone, and you can adjust the fueling and timing using your smartphone and load new maps, save maps, etc. And then this component here replaces the reed valve. So you mount part of the original KTM reed valve on here, and then you mount your two injectors on the side of the block. So you're moving your fuel injectors from the cylinder ports to the reed valve. And the benefits of relocating the injectors to the reed valve are said to be improved low and mid-range power. My thought is that injecting the fuel into the reed valve so it passes through the crankcases, it has a longer time to mix with the air and should result in improved atomization. And if that holds true, then the power and response should be improved, particularly in the low end. So I'm really keen to try this and see whether that holds true. Also included in the kit is various hardware required for the installation and an installation guide. Okay, so now I'm ready to start the install. I've already removed the seat and the tank and disconnected the battery. And the first thing to do is to remove the stock ECU. So you have to disconnect it using this connector. And there's a tab just here which you have to press down, and it clicks, and then you can swing this round fully, and then you can pull out the connector. And then you can remove the ECU. I find it easiest by pulling up on these rubber pieces a little bit, and they slide out very easily. Okay, so now I'm ready to mount the ECU, and in the instructions it says to use a zip tie around the connector to hold it in place, but there isn't really that much to zip tie onto. There's a few wires, but they're not very sturdy, so I didn't really like that idea. So what I ended up doing was making this little metal bracket and a couple of holes for the zip tie, and then these holes mount onto the existing rubber mounts, and just feed it through and pull them up like that, and then it's nice and secure and can't move around, and it's got some damping in there as well. The rear end, I'm probably going to put a little rubber pad under there, or I might make another mount here, but for now I'm just going to leave it like this. I think it'll be fine, and certainly better than just using a zip tie onto those wires. And then the Wi-Fi module, there's just enough room behind it to mount it here. So that's what I've done. And then I've got excess wiring going down into the airbox, which I'll tidy up. And then I've got the the other wires. So there's a handlebar mounted traction control and also the map switch wires. So I've got those all connected up, and next I can plug in the ECU connector. Okay, so that all looks good. And here you can see how I mounted the traction control controller, and I just mounted it onto the throttle. Originally the throttle had a 20mm screw. I changed that for a 25. The 20 is probably okay, but 25 fits perfectly. And then you can easily adjust while riding if necessary. And then the map switch I mounted on the handlebar on the left hand side, and you can easily switch between 1 and 2. And then the traction controller wiring and also the map switch wiring, I decided to run it along the left hand side of the frame together with the clutch hose, and it fits in there nicely, plenty of space. And the next job is to remove the injectors from the cylinder and put in caps. So there's one this side and one the other side. They're simply held on with 2 screws on each side. So just undo the screws, then you can remove them. And I'm going to remove the injector connector and then pull it out. And the other side is exactly the same. And I've disconnected the connector on the other side, and then I can pull the injector assembly off. And the next step is to use the bungs provided in the kit and block off the injector ports on the cylinder. So you just push them down and then tighten them up, and the O-ring expands and seals it. And here you can see I've removed the lower subframe bolts on both sides, and I've loosened the top ones and then moved the subframe up after I loosened the hose clamp on the throttle body, and moved it up, and that allows me then enough space to remove the reed valve. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, you can see I've been doing some assembly work, so I've got both of the injectors mounted onto the plate now. It was a little bit of a puzzle because the kit comes with these pieces and you need to work out the orientation, etc. There are photographs in the instructions, so you can eventually work it out. In the instructions it does only show using 1 screw in each side, but the kit comes with a total of 4. So I've installed all of them. I use some blue Loctite to hold all the fasteners in place. And then you've got these spacers here, and again for these screws I've used blue Loctite. And then on the reverse side you need to reuse the gasket out, or the O-ring out of the stock reed valve. So the reed valve is assembled with 4 screws holding it together. You take those out and then you can remove the O-ring from the stock one, put it in here. And then this mounts in here using the same screws. So I'm going to do that now. And one thing to note is that this screw to mount the reed valve is actually blocked by the injector. So you need to mount the reed valve before you put the injectors in. Also, it's quite deep, so you need a Torx 10-bit, which is quite long. And here you can see the complete assembly, and you need to use OEM gaskets, and you can see the angle I've decided on for the tank connection. Hopefully that works okay. If it doesn't, I'll have to adjust it. And here you can see the injector relocation kit mounted. It's a little bit tight, so it's quite fiddly, but take your time and you can do it. I don't have any interference problems. The closest one is the cold start, and I did have to tweak the position of the throttle body a little bit, but it's okay now, so you can still operate it, no problem. Okay, so I've got the bike back together. I did do a quick engine test and it starts and runs fine. I haven't made any adjustments yet. I want to ride it, and my plan is to ride tomorrow, and I'll make an initial impression video, and if it does need any adjustments, I'll be sure to note those. And then longer term, I plan to do a long-term review, probably after 2-3 months of riding. But yeah, right now it starts fine, and I'm looking forward to the ride tomorrow to see whether there are good improvements in the bottom end and mid-range power.